Is from Adam White regarding petition to restore public transit to what it was before April 19th, 2021. Need a mover? Oh, we'll need one to, so at this time, Director Larmer, you were going to read that delegation. Okay, thank you.
Yes, through you, Chair, to the members. Mr. White is online, but he's asked that I read his delegation for him, his prepared statement, which we will make a copy as part of the minutes following the meeting, and we'll go to regular council as well, too. So, dear Mr. Mayor and members of the committee, I'm sharing my voice with you today to address the on-demand public transit service, which should be phased out and restore public transit to what it was pre-April 2021. My petition was placed at a downtown store for 6 days. I had to move fast because I was moving in a week. I was going to mail my petition but decided to hand it in early, hence my redaction in my letter. I received 16 signatures. 16 was also the number of participants in the Engage Coburg on-demand transit survey who don't use or have interest in the on-demand transit service. That survey had 78 respondents, and 62 said they use on-demand, so a 25% of respondents lack interest in on-demand transit. When we add my 16 petitioners, we get 40% of respondents who have no interest in on-demand transit service. I hope these facts lead to a fulsome discussion because a significant portion of residents don't want on-demand transit service. The booking service isn't efficient to meet the daily and varied needs of riders. Buses are driving around mostly empty. Riders have to compete for a pickup while call center hours are shortened. There are not enough buses to meet an on-demand transit service, and the town of Coburg is in a huge deficit for transit. Public transit isn't an Uber, nor is it on-demand. It's a first-come, first-served system. Now residents are facing anxiety because public transit is now an exclusive transit service. Why riders are restricted to boundaries and availability, but council is focused on maintaining an on-call transit system while eliminating call center hours. Council knows ridership is low, lack of interest, education, and awareness about on-demand transit service, but still insists to educate riders on how to use the ride-sharing app and encourage them to use the system. May 16th, Council moved to implement a fully on-demand transit service, yet still hasn't instructed staff to undertake a program of public engagement with residents about transitioning away from tradition fixed-route public transit to an on-demand transit system. The decision was made solely by Council. Truly implementing a new public transit policy without public consultation and collectively changes the behavior of society goes beyond the spirit of a participatory democracy and ensuring accessible public transit and human rights. Ontario Human Rights Commission Part 1 Transit Human Rights. The code emphasizes the importance of human rights in enabling each person to feel part of the community and to contribute fully to society. For many persons in Ontario, transit services are critical to their achieving these goals. Transit services are part of the public infrastructure which provides access to basic goods and services, as well as to social and economic activities. Coburg was the only municipality in Newfoundland to implement an on-demand transit service. Again, the residents and taxpayers are now forced to adapt to a new on-call transit service, which is causing exclusionary anxiety for many. It is alarming how Council wants to implement a fully on-demand transit service that would transform residents' daily lives for the foreseeable future. Council has a duty of care to the constituents and a fiduciary duty to the taxpayers. Fiduciary duty. The Coburg has a transit budget deficit, yet want to expand that deficit by buying two small aerobic 8-meter specialty vehicles at a cost of $320,000 and possibly a hybrid vehicle. Added vehicle maintenance and operation cost, and continue believing in low-performing on-demand transit service that lacks interest by residents and taxpayers. The town of Coburg is the feel-good town. That is our brand. Coburg is growing. It is projected to have a population of 40,000. Coburg is major municipality in Newfoundland and close proximity to Trent University. Public transit is used by students, entrepreneurs, laborers, tourists, and everyone for daily commute. Furthermore, the fixed-route public transit is the benchmark of civility. On-demand is not homogeneous to nor a sustainable transit system for Coburg because transit is running a deficit and lacks interest and awareness. Plus, on-demand isn't on-demand nor flexible and accessible. It's a first-come, first-served transit system. It has bias built into it, thereby not reflecting a viable public transit. There's just too much anxiety in planning. People should be able to go to the bus stop and get on following a routed schedule. Even the drivers are put through anxiety as they navigate using a ride-sharing software which creates stress, then rides are canceled, no-shows or late arrivals, and adapting to new routes. On-demand transit service is not fair to a lot of riders and drivers. Conclusion: the priority for the town of Cobourg is to have an efficient public transit system that everyone understands. The fixed route transit system is the gold standard for evaluating service infrastructure of public transit. Fixed routes is tradition and a transit system built with responsibility to service everyone equally. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Larmer. As the committee has heard the delegation from Mr. Adam White, this time I would need the mover and to move one of the delegation actions.
May I ask, just to clarify, I would have a question for Mr. White. Is it possible to ask Mr. White a question?
Mr. White asked me to read it for accommodation. He's nonverbal, so any questions that you propose, he may be able to give a response after the meeting to all of council if you wish. He'll listen to the question and then respond back to it.
If I may, Mr. Chair, is to pose a question. My question, thank you, Mr. White, for a very, very thoughtful presentation. My question of clarification has to do, are you aware of the budget proposal to reintroduce a pilot of a fixed route for public transit? That is my question. And if I may, perhaps if I could, to the Director of Public Works or the clerk, are you aware, if Mr. White is aware of our budget proposal?
Through the chair, I am not aware if he is aware of our pilot project.
Thank you, Councillor Mutton. I'm sure Mr. White will get back to us. Mayor Cleveland?
Yeah, I guess I have a question to Director Wills. Director Wills, do you happen to know offhand approximately what our current budget allocation for transportation is? Round ballpark is more than adequate at this time.
Through the chair, I do believe we're up over $1 million now, and we are proposing the one-year pilot at an additional 175 for the fixed route on top of our existing on-demand service. So without any service reductions to the current service, the fixed route would be on top of that.
Chair, if I might have a follow-up.
Go ahead, Mayor Cleveland.
Thank you. Director Wills, would it be a potential possibility to look at an either-or instead of an and situation here? For me, I mean, when we're looking at the average usage of transportation of in the range of 300 to 400 individuals, we're looking at a budget of well over $1 million. I'm having a little bit of trouble getting my head around a both scenario, and I guess I'd be looking at, in the ask at the budget time of coming back with that $175,000 fixed route. Could that be in replacement of our on-demand system, or is that only being looked at from the staff perspective as going along with?
Currently, the budget's proposed as going along with the extra fixed route. It is absolutely up to the direction of council if that should change. We haven't made that suggestion, but there's many different options that can be looked at for transit, and which we have done several years ago, which is why we're at the on-demand system as it is now, and we've transitioned to a different style of bus, which may limit some of our options, but there are options for changing the budget, changing the service. Of course, spending less means reducing the level of service. There's give and take with any option, but we are open to suggestions and open to following the direction of council.
Thank you, and it's a follow-up to the question specifically to this standing committee. Again, we've been going back and forth. I've been in this job for a year, and it seems like transportation keeps coming up. From what I can tell, the previous council were inventive, ingenious, and very, very specific about trying to do something new and inventive. And it seems like, for the most part, all we've heard is criticism. And so from my perspective, and I'm just one of 7, I really think we should be looking at an either-or situation. Either we continue along with the on-demand system, or we look at returning to the fixed route. But the idea of trying to do both at the same time just seems futile at best, and a complete over expense and overpayment for a level of service. We're literally putting as much money into transport as we are to a library, and we're seeing the use of a library as compared to the 300 people using the transportation system. So it's more of a comment than a follow-up, but thank you for the bandwidth, Chair.
Thank you, Mark Sweevan. Go ahead, Councilor Mutton.
A question to you, Mr. Chair. Should there be a motion on the floor, or can I reply to the mayor? Are we in the debate section, or what would you like?
Yes, this time to get into debate, so we need a motion on the floor. There is proposed delegation actions. If you'd like to put something else on the floor.
If I would make a suggestion with a slight amendment. Thank you very much for the sample text. But given that this item is on our budget for discussion, that I would propose that council refer the petition from Adam White regarding restoring public transit to staff for a report to council during budget deliberations, during current budget deliberations. Where I'm going with that, Mr. Chair, is that if there's any additional information that has come forth from Mr. White, that would be helpful to all of council to know that during our budget discussions.
Thank you, Councilor Mutton. Do you have that, Director Larmer?
He works his magic.
Yes. And while Mr. Larmer's getting set up there, I have a comment myself in regard to the transit. I'd just like to, with Mr. White, I'm assuming he's online, inform him that the transit route that is proposed at 175,000 is a 1 hour loop around town that hits major spots. Unlike the on-demand system, which services the entire community, this transit route would be very limited as far as serving the whole community. Go ahead, Councillor Mutton.
Yeah, so I would like to mention, so I learned quite a bit from in my impromptu meetings in the veggie and fruit aisles in grocery stores. I don't know where you meet up with citizens, but I get a lot of really good info. So anyway, that aside, number one, I'd like to say that Port Hope, municipality of Port Hope, has both an on-demand and a limited fixed route, and I haven't heard anything negative about that. I would appreciate for the folks that may want to use a fixed route that they have a look at the proposed fixed route, because there was a draft route included in our budget documents, and my concern is that it crosses level railway crossings twice. And if you've ever had to wait for a train, you know that sometimes they can be really long, and you could sit there for 15 minutes just waiting for a train. So I was hoping that perhaps with some good input that we could revise that. Anyway, that aside, but what I learned at my impromptu meeting is a gentleman who has 3 jobs, and he said on demand is great if you know where you're going a week in advance, right? Your work schedule. But if you have to go out, let's say last minute, so forth, not so good. So he saw the value of having a fixed route, and he told me that if we didn't have transit, it would cost him over $60 a day in taxis just to get to work and back. So there's a lot here, Mr. Chair, but I'm hoping that we have a very robust discussion with all of council, and so I just want to make sure that we have a motion before us that includes Mr. White's information.
Yes, I too have heard the same, or had the same conversations. One of my concerns is that with both routes, that as we implement, if we do implement a fixed route, that we're going to get more and more complaints that the fixed route doesn't go to their area. And they're going to want to keep expanding the fixed routes. Well, before we had 2 routes, one in the east end of town, one in the west. And then as the complaints come in, that there were still areas that weren't being serviced. So I'm not sure what the answer is here. We'll have to deliberate more on it, but that will come up during the budget discussions, I'm sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be happy to volunteer to speak with our counterparts in Port Hope to see how they make it work, because I think the critical point here is it's just 2 major destinations. It's not door to door.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Right. Yep. Director Wills, do you want to add anything at this time?
Maybe we could just clarify exactly what the deliverable is, and if it's for the special meeting next Thursday, or if it's for the regular meeting in council in March. Too close? Too far?
Yeah.
Thanks. Sorry. If I could just clarify the motion, if it was, what information is exactly expected in IDA action, and is it for next Thursday's strategic planning? Okay. Or the regular council budget meeting on the 31st. I'm just curious. I would like to confirm exactly what my report is supposed to include.
Councilman Time, we're looking for a little more direction there.
Yes, I think the director asked a good question. It's not that we send it to the council meeting. I think it's just a request to staff to review Mr. White's information so that any additional information is available to all of council next week during budget, rather than to defer it to council. So I'm looking to Mr. Larmer. It might be a natural a result, but I just want to make sure staff have good direction if we need a motion at this time.
Mr. Larmer, a point of clarity, as this is our first standing committee meeting and the motion comes on the floor, it's to go to council on the 31st, is that correct?
Through you, actually, the standing committee also, in the terms of reference attached, can actually refer item delegation to standing committees as well too, and that's one of these provisions. They don't have to go right to regular; they can refer to another standing committee.
Okay, so we can refer it to
prior, yeah,
to the strategic committee.
That's
okay,
right.
Great, thank you.
Yes, as a point of, I think that this standing committee requests staff as opposed to, because it's not council, we're not, yeah. Sorry to everybody, we're starting new meetings and the protocol is a bit different.
Mr. Larmer just informed me that Mr. White has responded to the question, so he'll update us.
Yes, so Adam did respond to the clerk in regard to the question that Council Mouton raised, and he was not aware of this pilot just yet. So we'll make sure he touches base with the director just for information and respond to any other feedback for the meeting on the Thursday.
Thank you, Mr. Larmer. Okay, at this time, if the committee members are happy with the delegation action, I'll put it to a vote. All in favor? Opposed, if any, it's none. It's carried.